Righto, good day there everyone. My name is Starshield, and today we'll be exploring the history and the in-game performance of the Nueve de Julio, as a part of a new series, Shipping Talk, a prospective title, in all actuality. Now, back on the point, this is a Tier 7 Pan-American Premium Cruiser. Now, the astute of you will have undoubtedly noticed she bears a striking resemblance to an existing US cruiser, the Tier 7 Helena. And for good reason. The USS Helena is one of the St. Louis class, which was a direct improvement upon the Brooklyn class light cruiser, of which the Nueve de Julio was a part. Now, knowing this, I find it of some import to first discuss the Nueve de Julio's origin as a US cruiser, as the USS Boise, or Boys if you will, CO-47. The Brooklyn class were a 9,700 ton or 10,000 ton, depending on where you look, designed light cruiser that began production while two of the existing New Orleans class cruisers were in fact still being built. Now, the Brooklyn was a development in direct response to the Japanese Mogami class, and would bring to bear a main armament of 5 turrets that housed triple 6-inch 47 caliber Mach 16 guns, which were a direct development upon the 6-inch 53 caliber guns on the Omaha class, which a lot of you will know as the Intectri Tier 5 light cruiser. In addition to this, she mounted 8 5-inch 25 caliber anti-aircraft guns, and both of these armaments were standard for several pre-war US naval vessels. Now, interestingly enough, back on the point of the Mogami class, she herself was laid down as a light cruiser under the London Naval Treaty, eventually becoming heavy cruisers after being rearmed with 203mm guns from her prior 155mm armament. Now, this is rather fitting, since the Brooklyns filled roles that were much more akin to that of heavy cruisers throughout World War II. And the Boise herself had a particularly extensive career, of which one of her more notable engagements occurred alongside none other than the USS Helena herself. Now, this was also alongside the USS San Francisco, a New Orleans class cruiser, as well as the USS Salt Lake City, a Pensacola class. The engagement in question took place during the night of October the 11th to the 12th of 1942. This was the Second Battle of Savo Island, the Battle of Cape Esperance. Now, amidst the action during the dim hours just after midnight, the opposing Japanese fleet was making for an escape, Kinagasa missing the boys with 2 of her torpedoes as she made to flee. The Boise and Salt Lake City, in turn, turned on the searchlights in an effort to reveal the fleeing Japanese ships, only to provide the Kinagasa's crew with a target to focus upon. This sadly culminated in 2 shells from the Kinagasa's 203mm main battery hitting and detonating the Boise's forward ammunition magazine, rendering, as you would imagine, rather pronounced holes in her hull. Now, despite the horrendous damage taken, she, along with all of her sister ships, survived the war, a glowing testament to the ships and their crews. Now, following the conflict, the Boise was decommissioned shortly after July of 1946, where she sat at rest until transferred to the Argentine Navy in January of 1951, becoming the Nueve de Julio as we see her represented in warships right here. Several of the Brooklyn class, in fact, transferred to Allied navies post-World War II. The namesake of the class, for instance, the Brooklyn, was transferred to the Chilean Navy, with the Philadelphia to the Brazilian Navy, and Boyce herself was joined in just a few short months by her sister USS Phoenix, which was renamed General Belgrano. Don't forget that, she'll come back in just a minute. Now, not long after being purchased by Argentina, she was to take part in the 1955 Revolution Libertadora. Forgive me, I'm knacking that twice now. My apologies. Now, during this, she wasn't in any hostile fleet action, mind you, but instead played a bombardment role against military facilities and oil depots. And 9 years after this, she was reunited with her sister in a particularly unorthodox fashion. And by this I mean they ran one another in exercise and subsequently damaged one another. Now, just to the side, in May of 1971, she was removed from active service, and after this she had a notably unsavoury period, shall we say, from early 1976 onwards, where she was utilised as a clandestine detention centre of sorts. But the Nueve de Julio was eventually decommissioned, once again in 1978, where she was transferred back to the US and then towed to Brownsville, Texas. Now, that was the historical portion of this shipping talk. I must say, just as a bit of an interjection, I don't have any literature on my person pertaining to the Brooklyn class, not least of which the Boise post-1945, so this has been a rather interesting experience. And I must say, it was rather pleasant reading up on it and getting to know about it. Now, that aside, into the more pressing, I would imagine, to most folks, in-game statistics. How does she play? Well, as you see there, her AP is proficient at still dealing with her counterpart cruisers, not least of which the light ones. Do not hesitate to load up AP. Now, throughout these, you will have taken note of the fact that she has a 10-second reload. This is actually more pronounced than his sister, the Helena, with an 8-odd 6-second reload, I believe, with the exact same guns. But, as some compensation for this, so I like to think, she's got a bit of a nice repair. We're literally going to go back up to 3/4 HP. Granted, that's if you take HE damage, fires, flooding. It's a nicety, some would say a bit of a frivolity, but it has a bit of a niche role, and I've found it more useful than not. Granted, if you find yourself being shot at by the majority of the big bad old BBs, yeah, that's not going to do much for citadel damage, but all the same, it is a nicety. Now, as we continue on with the comparisons to the Helena, you also might have taken note of the fact that the Nueve de Julio is a bit slow. This can be a bit problematic, especially when keeping pace with your allied fleet. This is a bit more pronounced in Tier 8 and 9. We've got a top speed that is governed to 30 knots. Back on the Helenas, we will continue to make a comparison because for all intents and purposes these have very similar playstyles. It is all but the same class of ship, same guns, for all intents and purposes effectively the same boat. She's 2.6 kilometers knots, forgive me, slower than the Helena, so that is something to take into account. You are a cruiser, and a light cruiser that is faffing about the map at 30 knots. that can be an issue. I find it's not as much that big of a detriment because this is an island humper. This very much plays like in Atlanta, to where you find a prime piece of real estate and park next to it and proceed to lay on all the HEs. Though there is one more thing that is a notable difference between the two. It's going in tow with the less range on the guns, which you are limited to 30.6 kilometers, compared to the Helena's 40.6. You share the same concealment still at 11.5. Now that may not seem all that pronounced of a difference, being only 1 kilometer range variance between the two, but that only gives you a mere window of a 2 kilometer between your maximum range you can shoot at and the range in which you're being detected. So you don't really want to be caught out in the open. You cannot really afford to be side on with anything that's charging you. You either need to get out of dodge or grab an aforementioned piece of real estate to park your rear behind, to sit there on your jacksy all fat and happy. But that said, if you happen to get in a bit of a bounty, a brawl, you do have the heal, which is nice. I don't want to say it's something you want to be falling back upon, but it's certainly something to take into account with all of these menagerie differences between the Helena and the Nueve de Julio. Do I think this boat's OP? Not at all, not by any stretch of the imagination. Is she a good boat? I like the Helena, so I'm fine with the Nueve de Julio. Not exactly chuffed with her, but I find people that don't mind this sort of gameplay will probably be right at home. The heel will be nice. She's got hydroacoustic search, which can be changed out for DFAA. Which leads us into the skills. That's going to be a bit tricky. I personally think she can make use of from the concealment expert. It makes it a bit more viable, trying to get around without being detected to find an island. Though there's another thing that you may want to look at first. We've been shattering a lot of shells, and we've been shattering shells on light cruisers. Though that's not really a problem, because we can just do this, and light cruiser problem is gone. But against battleships, you will be shattering a rather lot of your shots. So if you want more consistent damage whilst you're trying to catch things alight, it's, I do not want to say required, but incredibly helpful having IFHE. That stated, you can also do a build. She's got decent AA, not quite what the Cleveland used to be at Tier 6. Let's face facts though, nothing's really going to have that. But you can make use of it if you want to just be a floating middle finger to CVs, because that's always fun, I suppose. But painting a picture on the entire thing, she's a healthy light cruiser. She's got a repair. She's got a very good armament. Arguably, she's got a better argument than the Cleveland. She's got another mount with the same guns as the Tier 8 Cleveland. What's not to like about that? She's a bit limited on range on the main guns. You will be shooting at shorter ranges than even some Tier 5 light cruisers. But overall, it was a bit like a jack of all trades, island humper. If that's your thing, you'll probably like the Nueve de Julio. If not, you probably want to say the bloody heck away from her. It's not to say she's bad in her own element though. With all of that said, I must say, not to sound a bit self-aggrandizing, I suppose would be the way to put it, this has been a lovely endeavour. Researching a ship I didn't know much about, sharing it with all of you. I will state though, I welcome all comments on this as a bit of an aside. I haven't done a video like this in some time. The last ones I'd done were actually for World of Tanks back when I was doing that with some regular scheduling. Yeah. So I'd be more than appreciative to see anything people would like to see, any additions, possibly any format changes. It is more than welcomed, because this isn't just for my sake, it's for everyone watching. So the more enjoyment you get out of it, the more content I am with producing these little snippets. That said, I have been Starshield. You'll have a lovely rest of your day, and I look forward to catching you on the next one of these shipping talks. Assuming we keep that name anyway. Still speculative like you mentioned. Don't know if I'm chuffed with it or not. But enough prattling on. You all take care until I catch you on that next one.